today is Friday. Happy Easter. It's a Good Friday today. So I'm still streaming. I will still be streaming this Sunday as well for the Python tutorial. But today we are World of WoqlCraft. I still haven't figured out what's the official pronunciation of the program, but yeah. But even like we have the holiday, I'm still doing this because I am not going out. I'm not traveling. I may go for a jog later, but I'm still following like what the government suggested. Stay indoor as much as possible, and of course do more Vaako crafting. So yeah, so hopefully let's hope today is better because nobody's working today, so hopefully like the internet won't be overloaded today, and my computer's I have changed my habit of opening million tabs, so hopefully like the performance won't be too bad on my computer, and I'll get a new one soon. So yay! So yeah, I think this is the third episode. So last two it has been cut short. So we are still constructing our schema. So last time we have according to the schema by schema.org. So I've downloaded two CSVs. So they have one of them has the type of the object. The other one will be the property of the object. It's kind of complicated because some objects they are actually a subclass of another object, or they are a superclass of other objects. So that's what we are going to do today. So if you look at the code, so we have construct the basic schema object last time, but we haven't construct their subclasses kind of relationship yet. And yeah, and this is a function of calling them actually. So you can see we used the execute from the Vaako query object to send them to the database. So my database running here, you can see from the top right corner, I have some other databases as well. Let me check what I have left off. So yeah, I do have the work we did last time, and so but anyway, we'll delete them and do it again. So I would actually, yeah, like uncomment that because we want to delete it and construct it again, because we want to make sure that we start fresh every time we updated our schema. I don't think it's necessary, but it's better. Like I just want to be sure. So yeah, so let's craft our add-on. So let's think. So we would have, we would go through the CSVs like we usually do. But for how I gotta do it, because this time we gotta actually so what we're gonna do, because for each series they do have so as far as I can remember, they do have a subtype. Um, so this will be their subtypes of that object that is in concern. Like so, because we go through it row by row, so each row actually is describing the property of one object. So for this particular object that we're handling for now, because like we'll use a apply to go through them, just like we did before with the previous function to construct it. So you can see that yeah, we have an apply here. So so yeah, we'll do the same similar thing. We just go through them row by row, but this time we will focus on their subtypes. So what subtypes they have, and actually there's another one. There's like subtype of, but we'll deal with them later. Once we construct this, the other is very similar. So it will be either they belong to. So there's like three possible cases here, right? So either they don't have any subtype, so it will be empty, or they have one subtype, so there will be one other object ID there, or there will be multiple, so there would be like commas in between. So if they have no subtype, we don't have to do anything. So we just like make an if statement here. So we only need to do stuff when they have subtypes. So if it's not empty, so it will be a string, right? So well, there are a million ways of doing it. One way of I found it quite easy, just like check the type, whether the type is the string. Um, So how we're gonna do it is that if they are multiple, so we have to split them, split it like at the comma. So well, we just assume that they have multiple kids. So kid in the kids, which is the series of types, and then we just split them. So that's why it's very important to check whether it's a string, because if it's none, then this will throw you an error, because if it's none, it doesn't have this method split. So it's always good to check the. That's the thing with Python, because Python is do duck typing, so it won't actually tell you that, if we don't have this if statement, it will still try to run even if the series.subtype is none, until it hit a rock, it hit an error, which it doesn't have the method split, then you will get an error. So it won't tell you off at the beginning that, oh, it's not a string, because it's not checking. Python will just let you do anything as long as Python can do something. But now we have to. That's why it's good to check it. Uh, or yeah, sometimes you have to do some type checking in Python. So so if this is just one kid, then this split would just give, it won't do anything. So it will just like give you back the series.subtype. So you only have one kid. So this for loop will only execute once if it's only one thing inside. But if it's, let's say, two of them, then we'll split them and we'll have two. So we'll have, so the for loop will go through it twice. So it will be the first will be the kid, and then the second time it will be the other kid. But that's one thing that we have to strip it, because so how did it, like, for example, the first one, let's say first one is the date of the event. So it's like let's say it's a daytime, let's say. So you have a date and a time, let's say that. So date, comma, space, time. So there's a space there that we don't want, because otherwise it won't matches the ID of the object. So we have to do a strip. So I assume that people are fairly familiar with Python here. If not, you may want to go to my class on Sunday, cross promotion. Yeah, or actually this is very simple. So split up there is actually splitting a string. So it's a Boolean method for string object. So strip is another Boolean method for string objects. That if there's so we didn't put anything here. The default is that it would take away all the white spaces in front and at the back of the string. You can put something else. So if you are, let's say, doing other thing that maybe the separators is like hyphens, so you can put hyphen there, so get rid of all the hyphens. But right now we just, most of the cases you deal with white space. So the default is white space. We don't have to put anything in there. So yeah, if one of these kid is the other objects that we have already input, right? So we have to check whether that one is another. So so here we have a little trick here. So we have to get all these objects that we got from the previous step. So what we're gonna do if we look at here, so yeah, we store all of them into type query objects, right? So I think what would be good is that maybe we take another parameters here, that we would hold the whole list of the objects that are the valid object, because I found it useful to check it, because otherwise if you pass it to the database, it will throw you an error that you don't understand what's happening, because maybe we never trust the data, right? So I have been working as a data scientist. I know that sometimes they are very there are entries that you are not expecting it to be there. So maybe someone like updated the file, the CSV, but forgot to update it completely. So there may be still a type that's hanging on there, but maybe it's already deprecated, and we don't have it. And then when you push it to our graph here, then it throws you an error, and you just don't know why there's an error, because you didn't check whether this is a valid type. So I would say that this is a type list, let's say. Yep. So this is a list of all types that we have go through in the previous step. So make sure that is in there. It's not some like maybe somebody typed something wrong, right? So maybe instead of date, somebody spelled it wrong, days or something, then it's not there. So to avoid error, we always check. So if kid is in this type list, so and also we want to make sure this is a list because you see that the query objects types query objects here is a column of pandas data frame, so it will be a series. So we just want to make sure that it's a list, so you can use this syntax because you can check whether something is in a list. Yeah, so this is this, and then what we gotta do is that um we want to like have a query object that we got execute together with the other query objects. Um, so what we gotta do is that so if you want to add a new relationship, right? So we're just like doing it now. So we have a query object. Typo. Yep. So I'll add a new relationship. So this is quad because we are not updating the graph itself. We are updating the schema of the graph. So the last parameter should be schema, right? And then okay, the relationship is that this kid is a subclass of the original one. So kid is a subclass of. So all this will be in the documentation. So why we have this subclass of relationship? Is it default? Yes, it's default, and this this relationship is defined in the default our schema that come with all your databases. So if you look at here, actually, if you look at the preview on the top right hand corner, let's look at it, right? So, oops, it's taking a while to load. Right, I just forced it to load. Okay, so if you look at owl here, if it's loading correctly, yeah, this is the challenging bit, right? Because like it's kind of it's a big schema, even though we haven't completed it, so it takes a while to load. So you see it now. So you see at the beginning we have all these prefixes. These are the default um our object. So all of the database in Terminus DB, that even though if you create a new one, actually we can create a new one here. So let's create a new one to see what we have. So new DB. So we just make a random new database. So right. So it's creating. So okay, so yeah, we are in the new DB now. So if you look at the schema here, so we have nothing, right? It's supposed to be. But if you look at OWL, so we still have this header here. So these are all the default OWL objects that all the Vaako data, all the Terminus DB graph will have. And yeah, usually like you won't change them. Please don't change them unless you know what you're doing and have really good reason. And so you see that like actually subclass of is defined in one of these things. So all these details you can actually find in the documentation. And talking about documentation, we are working very hard to update our documentation. So it will be easier to find all this information in the future. We try to separate. There will be a documentation for beginners who just want to get started, and there will be a more detailed documentation for people. For example, if you want to know where is the subclass of and what you can use, what is already predefined, you can find it easily. So yeah, as a subclass of it belongs to there. So, spelling mistake spotted. Right. So kid is a subclass of the original thing, which is the series.id. So I'll just copy series. I like copying. I'm not very good at typing. My colleagues, they type really fast. They are like, very good at it. I'm not. Right. So, okay, this is more or less what we want to do. But remember, we have a for loop, and then we will have more than one of these query objects. We want to put them together to save it somewhere. So this is what I always do. It's kind of like my little programming trick. Well, it's not that. I don't think it's something like a new discovery or something, but I like you know, have something called result, and it's an empty list, so I store everything, and I can output them at the end. So what I gotta do is, so this result is a list of query objects. So I just append all of this inside. So I will collect all of them and return them all at once. Yeah, so this is more or less the so when an object has different subclasses, so it got kids. So now let's look at the other direction. So this object is a kid of something else. So it will be very similar. So another trick that I do all the time is to copy the code and just modify it because I hate typing. So okay, this time this one is for the for subtype of. So there's another column that's called subtype of. Um, so yeah, those two CSVs you can find it in the. I think last episode I posted the link to the repo that hosts the completed code and also the CSVs. So I will post it again. So all these you will find. If you want to look at the CSV, you can go to the GitHub repo and download it and see. So this time it's the subtype of. So it's not the kid. So that's our parent. So we are subtypes of something else. So it's a parent, right? So subtype of. So it's similar. We like if it's more than one, we have to split them. We have to strip them. But instead of kid, we have parent. So if a parent is also a valid object, then so this one we have to change this relationship. So instead of our kid is a subclass of me, so I am a subclass of my parent. So so this is my parent, and this is me. So, oop. So I am a subclass of my parent. So this is it. So let's save. Okay, and now because like it will also be appended in the result, so I just return the result. Oop. Right. So that's it. So let's get rid of the space. Okay. This function should work. Well, now let's call them, right? So let's have a look how we gotta call them. So so I think we've got to do something. Oh, sorry, I'm using my mouse, which is different from the trackpad, so the direction I always mess it up. So bear with me, it's a bit dizzy. Yeah, buckle up. So it's very similar to this. So instead of query objects, we will have query add-on object. So let's make it shorter, obj. Right. So query add-on object will be the types, and then we will apply this construct schema add-on here, right? And then we have this parameter, so we have to put that in as well. So let's get that in. Actually, I would right. So for the pandas data frame to work, so you have to so this apply again. It's like a panda data frame object. So what they gotta do is like, so you need to put in of course a function, and axis is the direction. So we go row by row, so it's 1. And also this will be the other qual, so it's like other keyword arguments. So that is for the for passing extra parameters into the function. So we have the type list, which will pass in this one, the type query objects here. So it's a bit long. Actually, we better break them. So it's like this one as well is a bit long, but we are not running Flake 8, so I won't see those like hideous warning. So yeah, but you shouldn't write something super long. You can see I have a line here to guide me to not making things super long, but I'm breaking my rules. But we'll tidy up like at the end. It's fine for now. Yeah. So you know, now we have all these objects, and we have built a relationship um, between them and the parents and the kids. So what else we do? Maybe we should deal with the property now. So yeah, we are doing it bit by bit. Oh, we haven't. Oh, sorry, we haven't. We only created them. We haven't actually like execute them like we did before. So yeah, you can see. Oops, sorry, direction again. Oh, you may be like, okay, I'm afraid that is behind my head. So yeah, but this is actually, let me make some spaces. Right. So yeah, this one is like we actually call that function that execute it. So we have to do the same with the head-on. So how about we create another function that do the same? Right. So create schema object, create schema add-ons. Right. And what we're gonna do is so we got to execute all of this. So this is a bit tricky because so remember this QueryAt object state. So for each row of them, there's actually another list, right? So we have so instead of like so before query is just a list. Now we have a list of a list. So yeah, so there is it's slightly more complicated. So what I gotta do is I gotta let me think. So I gotta maybe combine them together. So what I gotta do is I gotta do my other trick again, create an empty list and combine them together. Right. So new queries. Right. So what I gotta do is so for query so for this like querying queries. Actually like queries in queries, but it's well it's not nice that way. But like each query actually is a query list, so maybe I should rename it. Oh my god, these multiples. It's like Inception. So for each query list, I would just wrap it with a Vaako n, let's say. So this new query will equals to Vaako query dot Vaako n, and then I will just wrap up this query list. And like before, I have to unpack them. Right. So this time, and I would so instead of having like a list of queries, I would just have one Vaako query. That is oops, sorry, I've realized I made a mistake. Yeah, so it would just be one Vaako query that's wrapped by the Vaako and. There's a little catch there. I'm cheating because I'm looking at my previous code, and when you run it, it actually will throw you an error if this list is empty. So some of them actually are very lucky. It doesn't is actually very lonely. This object doesn't have any parents or doesn't have any kids. So this query list will end up being empty. Which if you throw it in the Vaako and actually you can't even unpack it if it's a none. Again, Python lets you do anything until it hits something that you know that throw an error. So if query list is none, then this will throw an error. So we want to make sure that it's not none. So the length of it should actually be greater than 0. Actually, you can check whether it's like a multiple one. So actually, like you can do something even like if it's greater than 1, we use a n. If not, then we just like So maybe let's do it this way. Let's do it slightly different from what I've done before. So if it's greater than 1, so we have so this wrap it up in Vaako n. So if not, else if that's the length is equal to 1, then we would actually like new query will be just equal to our query the query list itself. So it will be the first we still have to unwrap it, right? So it's the only so it will only have one element, which is the 0, and then it will be the new query. Else we just do nothing, so it's fine. It's fine. But so instead of having a new query, we want to put all of this new query in the new queries. So I gotta change this code. So this will actually be new queries dot append. So instead of having something new that we don't know what to do with it, we just like append it into our list, so we'll return it at the end. So right, Oop. Right. So now we have all these like new queries that is a collection of so like instead of having queries, which is a list of queries, we only have a list of Vaako query object. So it could be either like just one object, or it would be a multiple queries that's wrapped by Vaako and. So this is super helpful. And now we can execute them like we did before. So we can do exactly the same thing like this one, right? So okay, yeah, it's here. So result query will be, so instead of queries, we'll be like having the new queries that we have tidy up. So this time it's just a list of queries, so we can unpack it like we did before. And exactly the same thing. Right. So now, finger crossed, it should work. Let's try it out. How about that? And we can debug. So this is a little bit like we debug on the go. So instead of having a million bugs, we just debug them on the go. Actually, it would be better if you can write unit test, but it's just a little showcase, so I'm not going to do that. And yeah, if I can go to the bottom of the thank you. Right. So schema add-on for types. Right. So instead of this, we run this. Right. And instead of this one, I will have this add-on object instead. Right. Let's save. And I gotta run the code. So let me get back to my terminal. Yeah. Right. So oh, actually, I'm not in the directory yet. So let me get there. Sorry, I forgot to do it in beforehand. Right. Okay, let's see. Yes, we have the code there. Build schema.py. Yes, so let's. I'm not in the right Python environment. Sorry about that. I haven't prepared very well. Activate. So this is schema, right? To remember correctly. Please tell me this is right. Yeah. Okay, now we can execute them. Python build schema. Yeah. So it's a bit cramped there. I should have cleaned this the terminal output, but it's actually doing something. But it takes a long time. It's a bit scary when it do that. So, oh, there is an error. Good. Oh no, this is yeah. Sorry, that yeah okay. That was the error from my private version, but we do have errors of types of series. Ooh, maybe some spelling mistake going on there. Okay, so yeah, let's go back to our code and let's go back here. So subtypes and subtypes of. Am I spelling them correctly? That's my question. Let me check with my previous code. Subtypes and subtype of is not subtypes of. Okay, that's really dumb of me. Right, so there's no S here. So this is just tiny errors that's good to get rid of before you really like have a big code. It's running. So let's do that again. Yeah. It may be difficult for you to see here. It's like a lot of things, but I'm very I'm used to dealing with my own error, so I can spot the error very quickly. Yes, so this is running. Oh, there's something interesting going on there, and I'll show you. Right. Oh, I think because I know why there's like some printout. I think I did some print something here. Yeah, I do print out like what it looks like. Sorry, I forgot my own code. Forgot what I did. Okay. Yeah. So now it's updating. It's sending all this information, and it's the database is building the schema now. Okay, so it's finished executing. So let's have a look at our new schema. So it's not this one. So let's go back to our tutorial database. Right, just loading. It takes a while. Right, so let's look at schema. Right, so the classes. So you see now we have all the classes like before, a name, but it should. Oh, actually, can I make it like smaller? Actually, like, oh, yeah, it's not showing the. Right, yeah, it's not showing the subtype of things here because it's too big. I don't know if they're, yeah, actually, like, it's quite small. I don't know whether you can see it, but you can see the parents classes here. So this column, it is not supposed to be there before. Yeah, and subclass. Yeah, the console, the user interface of the console will be better as well, because I know my colleague are doing some work on it. So we have a new we'll have a makeover of the of the console, so it will be easier to find the stuff later. Yeah, so SubClassOf, some of them do actually have it, but it's not that common. So yeah, it's not showing everything, otherwise it would got frozen. So anyhow, like, actually our code executes, and is you have to trust me that it works. And yeah, so let me check. So I have been talking. So hello. Hey, new query results. Sorry, I just checked the chat right now. I don't have like that much screen. I was really focused. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, you trust me. That's good. Yeah. So any questions so far? I'm looking at the chat right now. So Eddie was there as well. Hey Eddie, hi. So yeah. Um. So yeah, this is like so far that what we have built. With all this, and let me look at the time. We are like half an hour in now, so if there's no more questions, I can actually maybe do a little bit of property. Property will be very similar to the schema, so we can construct that as well, but we only we do deal with half of the property, because property also have some trick inside that will have the range and the domain. So yeah, so I think we need more time to do it, but we can construct a very basic property, like we construct the schema object, and then we will continue next time. So yeah, I hope I can show you at least the basic part of the property. So right, let's get back to work. So let's look at our code again. Right, so you see that we have read the CSV. We have, for the types, but we haven't done anything with the property yet. We have only load them in. Actually, like, we shouldn't load them in before, because we are not doing anything with them. Um, but actually, let me get rid of the print, because we have a lot of things going on. So we're gonna start doing things with the property. Um, so for each property, actually, they are also a object, unless they are a simple type. So it's more complicated property, because they could be a simple type object. Which, what do I mean by simple type? So it's the type that you have in Python, right? So it's like the basic Boolean, strings, numbers, decimal numbers, like, which is like float or double, depends on what programming language you're talking about, or even datetime. So so it's more complicated in schema.org. So actually, this is something that we have to have some domain knowledge about the data.org object. So actually, I gotta cheat. I gotta copy this here. So you can see that I have a mapping here. So these are the simple type that we pick out from schema.org. So you can see they are booleans or text, which is like a string. So I will map it into a string. So a date and datetime, I will try to map it as a datetime object. A URL also is like a basic building block in Schema.org, but in Python we just, or in Terminus DB, we just deal with it as a string. So float will be decimal in Terminus DB. Numbers, well, there will be integer will be integer, and all these like XPath and all this will be just string. So instead of is a complex object, it's just a it's just type that we can map as a data type in this Terminus DB. So when we construct them, so it's actually slightly different. So we can make another. So you can reuse this, schema object. Actually, we can reuse them. Let's reuse them. So what we're gonna do is just like we check whether they are simple type object. So if they are, so I gotta do some trick with them. So I gotta change this one a little bit. So if they are one of them, right? So I'm using in again, like for Python, you can use x in a list to check whether x is in that list, or x in a dictionary, which means that whether this x is in the key of the dictionary. So the key will be all this schema.org object. So this is very handy. So if you are learning Python, this is something good to know. It will come in very handy in the future. So if they are simple type object, actually, we would do it afterwards. So yeah. So if they are, so I got to do a little bit of a trick here. So I would append. So remember that Vaako query objects can chain like this. So I want to add something to our result object. So our result object will be just like like what we did before. We have a doc type ID. We have a label. We have a description. But we'll also add something. So if they are simple type, we'll actually add a values to them that actually we can actually hold a value of it. So instead of like having the object, we can actually put the string related to this object. So we can actually have a value assigned to this object. So if it's a text object, we can have a value of string that's assigned to it. So basically, it will be something that we can interpret. We can have a string that is related to this object. So equals to result dot, can't spell. So I would add actually I would add a property to it. So what we're gonna call it is I gotta call it a, let's say like text value, right? So or date value. So I would call it yeah, just like this. Naming is very difficult, but I just like make the most obvious choice, hopefully. So you can also give me suggestions like you did before, like new query results or something like. It's difficult. So this property will not be another object. It will be one of these simple data types. So it will be a data type object. So it's not like an object that you define. So it's a data type object that's predefined in that OWL header that I showed you before. So it's a predefined thing. So it's actually XSD instead of SCM. Yeah. So XSD means that it's like a predefined data type object. So again, all of these would be available in the documentation. So that would be like more advanced topic for all these OWL object and yeah. So this would be one of these type, right? Boolean, string, data frame, date time. So I gotta just do a map of it. So I gotta call this mapping and then put the ID as the key. So if it's a schema.org Boolean, it will become a Boolean, right? Yeah. So let's save. Let's hope it works. Right. So this is something that we do a little bit of change because we want to have a value assigned to the simple type object. Right. Yeah, so this is it. And so now we can actually use this function on our property as well. So let's do that. So here, right. So we would call these functions again. So we do something very similar, right? So property, we call it you know, naming again. Property objects. Property objects. Yeah, maybe property object. No. Yeah. Right. Or maybe I just call it query objects again because it's a different data frame, so it doesn't matter if I use the same name. Let's just make it more neat. So okay, so properties dot apply. So I apply this, right? And then remember the axis equals to 1 because the default is 0, which is column by column, which is not what we want. And it will give you an error. Right. So this is the property object, and we would actually need to link this to the data type object, because now the data type object doesn't have the type object doesn't have any property yet because we haven't loaded in the property and we haven't linked them together. So yeah, this is what we did for just creating the property object. Okay, now we should think a little bit, like, before we link the property into the, actually, like, can we link it now? Maybe we actually I won't do it now because there are some complication with the property. Again, if you look at the CSV, these properties, so it's kind of like the type objects that they have a subclass of, things, and they are a subclass of other things. Actually, they have a range and a domain. So a domain means that what kind, what type this property belongs to. So for example, again, like an event has a date, right? So for date, so the event date. So an event have an event date. So the domain of the event date will be the event. So what property it belongs to. And because this event date is a datetime object, so this event date, the range would be the datetime. So it also have these relations, and we have to construct them. And the tricky part is because in the schema, suppose one property only have one domain and one range. So this makes things more complicated if a property have more than one range. So if a property, let's say, if a property like the daytime, event date can be just a date, or can be like a date time, so it has a specific time. So it's like your Google Calendar. You can have an all-day event or just an event with a specific time, specific date time. So what happened is that in this event date, it has two ranges. It could be a date time or it could be a date, and that makes things super complicated. Um, so what we're gonna do is that actually we would create. So this is quite a big topic. I think it would be better if I leave it to next time, because then we would first need to create, a fake range and a fake domain, and then we'll put the real domain and real range under like big subclass of them. So it's kind of complicated. It's kind of still a bit of code. So I think it would be better if I save it into just one tutorial. And now it's like about 45 minutes in. So if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat. Um, if not, then I would see you next week. So um, yeah, I will save this file, and then so we would do it next time. But so far we have been fine. We have construct all these object, all these class object, which they belongs to other, they are subclass of other things. They also have their own subclasses. So far so good. Again, this is a super complex schema. if you have not done any, if you're just new to Terminus DB, you want to just try it, this is more advanced. So I would recommend you go to our blog, so blog.terminusdb.com. There is a tutorial using the bike data, so that one will be more beginner. So it will be your first graph, and you can kind of understand how this work and like the interface of the Terminus DB console. It will be better if you start there, and then you can come back to this tutorial series and maybe understand more how to construct a more complex schema. And also, you can also join our Discord server. So now we have a Terminus DB community Discord server. You can also find the link to the Discord server either through our community site, so community.terminusdb.com, or actually you can find it from the blog as well, so blog.terminusdb.com. You will find the link to the Discord server. So go there. We are all hanging out there. We're happy to answer any questions. So if you have something you want to try out yourself with Terminus DB, you can do it, and then you can just ask questions. And maybe you can inspire me to do more different series of tutorials about how to do things with Waku. And so I think that's more or less I want to say. Thank you so much for coming. Let's take it easy today because it's a holiday, and next week we'll continue. If you're new to Python, you want to learn Python, Sunday we still have the tutorial. We will cover the Python basics, and Monday I will still do a web tutorial. I'm still thinking about the topic. I have done like something with web this week, so definitely I will talk about something that I've learned this week. And yeah, so I'll see you very soon. So bye bye. Thank you for listening. So yeah, see you.